Good morning and welcome to AP on Play. I am your host, Anjali Prasad. Thank you for tuning in with us. Today we have a very special guest. State Senator Jeremy Moss is visiting us. His jurisdiction or his hometown is Southfield. He's now Senate President pro tempore in the Michigan Senate, and he's going to tell us all about Senate life. Jeremy, thank you for visiting us.
Thank you, and thank you for visiting me. You were in Lansing with your son just yesterday.
Yes, so we were.
This isn't just a Bloomfield show. You're getting out in the Capitol, too.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're going to talk about that, but I first want you to tell us a little bit about your background for those in the audience who don't know who you are.
Yeah, I'm a lifelong resident of Oakland County. Grew up in Southfield, went through Birmingham Groves High School, went to Michigan State University, go green. And Michigan State is 4 miles up the road from the state capitol. So I was studying journalism and political science, but also interning at the state capitol at 18, 19 years old. Just had this interest in public service then. Really was moved by the fact that people could serve their community and have a big impact on decisions that come down out of government that help people. And so really out of college, when I was 24 years old, I took a plunge and a risk and decided to run for the city council myself in Southfield. And it was a crowded field of incumbents and opponents, but ran, knocked doors, told people I had the energy and enthusiasm for this. I think I was a standout because I was the youngest candidate in the race, and ended up winning that race. And it's just been a whirlwind of a journey that has been very gratifying to be able to help people, but also in this moment, very serious. We're dealing with a lot of serious things.
Yes.
And I'm proud to be in this fight. So right now I do represent Bloomfield and Bloomfield Hills in the Michigan State Senate.
And what cities do you represent in the state Senate?
Yeah, so my first term in the state Senate, my district was the 696 corridor. So basically Farmington to Hazel Park.
Okay.
Then there was a redistricting, and now my district is up and down Telegraph. So it really starts in Detroit. I have a portion of Northwest Detroit. It goes up to Southfield and Southfield Township, Bloomfield Hills and Bloomfield, Auburn Hills and Pontiac, Lake Angeles, and a portion of Waterford.
Wow, so you represent kind of a vast geographic area.
You go from Detroit to Waterford.
Wow.
It is a very diverse district with diverse challenges and diverse needs, and we try to work for everybody in the district.
Now, did you go then from Southfield City Council to Michigan Senate?
I actually was elected to the State House in 2014.
Okay.
So I served 2 terms in the State House, representing Southfield and Southfield Township, which is Beverly Hills, Bingham Farms, and Franklin. These are the communities
and this
I
is
grew
our
up
audience,
in.
actually. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm from the area, grew up here, educated here. Still don't feel like a politician. I don't feel like, I don't think we should put our politicians on any sort of pedestal. I feel like a neighbor. I feel like a neighbor who grew up in these communities and trying to do right by the people that I represent.
And I think there's a distinction between a politician and a public servant.
I agree.
And you have that feel of a public servant.
I like when people call me Jeremy. I don't my first name is not Senator.
Right.
So it's important to me to be approachable because I am your neighbor. I deal with rising costs too. I deal with all this craziness too.
Yes.
And that's what drives me here.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy and I met earlier this week because my son, who my audience knows, I talk about my son all the time. He's very politically minded. He called me up and he said, "Mom, I need to testify in front of the Senate Education Committee tomorrow." I said, "What?"
There's not a lot of high school students who are waking up to testify before the Senate Education Committee.
And I'm a lawyer, not a politician, so I didn't quite understand what was happening. But we made it happen. We went to Lansing. We attended the Senate Education Committee, and here was Jeremy.
By happenstance.
I know. Second time we've met by coincidence.
Yeah.
Yes. And Jeremy was introducing SB 492, which I'll have you explain to the audience because this is something that is very Oakland County centered. So let's hear about
absolutely.
it.
So I had a bill that morning in the Senate Education Committee. I also represent Pontiac, as I said.
Right.
And earlier this year, there was this horrific situation in Pontiac, and these headlines played out out across the country of these 3 kids who were left abandoned by their mother and lived in squalor and filth and slept on pizza boxes. I mean, and not just for a month, but for 4 or 5 years. And so Sheriff Mike Bouchard, who's a great partner of mine, his deputies rescued these kids, and he was trying to work back on where did they become lost in the system?
Yeah.
Why weren't they in school?
Yes.
They were like 12, 13, and 15. What happened here? So he found out that their mother, who is being charged by our county prosecutor, Karen McDonald, with abuse, she abandoned them, alleged to have abandoned them. She last transferred them from one school to another and told the first school, we're moving over to this school. So the first school disenrolled them, but they never showed up at the second school. So they were lost, and there was a crack that they fell through. So we introduced a bill to close that gap, to make sure the schools have to confirm with one another during the transfer process that one of them has responsibility for these kids showing up to school. And it would trigger a process. If they didn't show up, police, law enforcement could check to see where they are.
Yes.
So I worked with our prosecutor here in Oakland County, our sheriff, to tighten up and close this gap, because we don't know how many other kids are just lost in the system.
And they were, at the hearing, they called it, did they say ghost children?
Ghost children, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, our prosecutor talked about, of the hundreds of thousands of students here in Oakland County, there are about a couple thousand who have truancy issues. And of the couple thousand, there's about 500 that it's so persistent and so bad that authorities have to come in and step in and find out what's going on.
Yeah. We don't think about it.
No.
Especially in this community, but it's right down the road.
That's
and
right.
This terrible thing happened.
Yeah.
So once this was on your radar, how do you introduce the bill?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. We have good relationships between levels of government. So the sheriff called me and reached out to my office and said, hey, we're unpacking how this happened. Here's a problem. So I have a legislative staff. And we have bill drafters and lawyers, and we have a whole team. And we said, okay, here's what we want to achieve. We want to fix this problem and require that the schools communicate with one another. So we dived into the school code. We found a paragraph that we could insert that requires that the second school give written confirmation to the first school upon a transfer that they have enrolled the kids.
Right.
And only then can the first school disenroll those students. So there's no gap there. So we put that into a bill. We talked to the education committee chairwoman who you met.
Right, and Dana
Polhanke.
Okay.
And I said, hey, I really want to introduce this. This is a harrowing situation that happened. And she was on board, and she put it on the agenda, and that's where we saw you in the committee hearing.
And I have to believe everybody would support this bill.
Yep. So
right?
it's
Okay.
I'm a Democrat. The sheriff is a Republican. This should be a nonpartisan issue, which is important. And we got positive feedback from our Democrats and Republicans on the committee. And we're working with the education community. We reached out to the Department of Education. We reached out to school administrators.
Right.
So I didn't just introduce it hoping and praying and wishing it was the right thing to do. We worked with
you did
all
your
of
research.
the players involved to make sure we were solving this issue.
And were there other speakers that day? I know there was lay people speaking on bills. I don't know if it was on your bill.
No, on my bill we had the sheriff, Mike
Oh,
Bouchard.
that's right, it was the sheriff and
we had
the
the prosecutor, Karen
yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
both of whom gave this bill a boost.
And so now that the bill has been introduced, correct? So what happens next?
So we had a hearing. Now the committee will reconvene in the next few weeks to vote it out of committee.
Okay.
And we anticipate it will be voted out, and then it comes before the full Senate. And that's when we go into the big Senate chambers, which I saw you were visiting a few months ago, and we debate it. And, we'll have I'm president pro tempore of the Senate.
Yes.
We can talk about that.
Yes.
So I preside over the Senate. That's the leadership position. I am in the front of the room with the big gavel, ushering through these bills. So every day that we're in session, we have, a lineup of the bills that have come out of various committees. We don't just have the Education Committee. We have many more committees, Judiciary and Local Government and Elections Committee. I chair the Elections Committee, all these committees that are moving bills through the process. And when they get out of committee, we do a lineup each day on which bills we're going to vote. So hopefully this will come soon before the full Senate. And then I got to start the whole process over again in the House.
This is what I was going to ask. So, and then what do you need, like 2/3 or how many?
Simple majority.
Okay, so simple majority votes in the Senate.
Simple majority votes in the Senate.
And then it's going to move to the House.
And then it will go to the House Committee. And we'll have it on the House Education Committee.
Okay.
And we'll do it all over again.
Yes.
And then we will hopefully get it before the full House and then to the governor's desk for her signature.
And then she signs.
Yep.
And timing, this event happened in about February.
Yeah.
So you've already got the bill on the table.
Yep.
Timing-wise, how long would you expect the bill to pass, assuming it passes?
You're asking a very loaded question only because things aren't moving quickly in Lansing. It's been very challenging.
Okay.
So I served as a Democrat in the minority during my time in the House. So Republicans had the majority in the House and Senate. But we still worked together. We still were able to move things along. Then when I came into the Senate in 2022, my second term in the Senate, we had a Democratic majority, Democratic House, Democratic Senate. And we were able to get a lot of things done. Now it's split control. We have a Democratic Senate and a Republican House.
Okay.
We should be working together. It is very challenging. All of this political tension from D.C. has sadly made its way into the state capitol. And I'm pushing my colleagues in the House to shake themselves of their partisanship and pass bills that we know will be popular, solve problems, are not partisan. So, if you are so inclined, or any of your viewers are so inclined to give this bill a boost when it gets to the House, that's how people can advocate. They can call their state rep. They can say that, I need you to move this issue. I need you to put this on the agenda. And I think it makes a difference.
You think it makes a difference?
Yeah. So
and yours is State Bill
Senate
Bill
Bill
492.
492.
But even if you don't remember the number, you can explain what bill you're talking about, viewers, and if it's important and if you think it should pass. And I can't imagine anybody who would oppose it.
Yep. And like I said, don't put politicians on a pedestal. Call them.
Yeah.
Call them, and then call them all out. You can advocate by telling them, I'm a constituent. This is what I want from you. This is a representative democracy. People should be working for you.
Yes. Okay, so let's go back to Senate President pro tempore.
It's quite a title.
And I know tempore for my son means for the time being in Latin.
Yes.
He tells me this is the highest ranking position in the Michigan Senate.
That's right.
So how did a young person like yourself come into this position?
So the president of the Senate is the person who holds the proceedings, stands in the front of the room, leads the debate, recognizes people, ushers things forward. By the Constitution, the president of the Senate is the lieutenant governor. So Garland Gilchrist is the president of the Senate.
Okay.
I was elected by my colleagues to be the Senate president pro tempore, and really it's the vice president of the Senate, but I am a member of the Senate. And so when the lieutenant governor is not there, and he's I typically do preside over the Senate on a day-to-day basis. I'm opening up Senate with the big gavel. I'm calling on people for debate. People make motions to me and I recognize them. We do have a Senate Majority Leader who is really the leader of the Senate.
And who is that person?
Winnie Brinks. So she's the first woman to be Senate Majority Leader in our state's history. And so she is the state senator out of Grand Rapids. I'm the leader of the Senate, but I'm technically the number 2 position in the leadership scheme of the Senate.
Okay.
Under the working with the Senate Majority Leader, who's the top position in the Senate.
So your roles when you were in the House and in the Senate, this has been a big change for you.
Oh yeah.
You've worn different hats in the course of your tenure in the Michigan government.
I was a freshman in the minority party in the state House, and now I am a leader in the Senate in the majority.
Wow. And is this your second term in the
Yep,
Senate?
this is my second term in the Senate. So I served 2 terms. I was elected to 2 terms in the
Okay.
House, now 2 terms in the Senate. 12 years total it will be in the legislature.
And do you guys have, is it a 2-term limit or a 3-term?
You can serve 12 years total between both chambers. So if somebody wanted to spend all their time in the House,
okay.
accruing leadership and seniority and using that to pass more legislation, they could do that. Or some of the House members can go on to the Senate or vice versa. So you can serve 12 years maximum between the 2 chambers.
Okay. And what year is this for you?
This is year 11.
So
It's been a while.
now I think a lot of viewers know, but let's tell them about your plans for the future.
So this was an unexpected part of my journey. I don't just chase offices. I look where I can best serve, and honestly was thinking, I'll be term limited. What are my opportunities outside of elected office to continue to advocate? But this year there was a surprise retirement announcement from Gary Peters, our U.S. Senator, and our U.S. Congresswoman Haley Stevens made a decision to run for that U.S. Senate seat, opening up our congressional district here in Oakland County.
Yes.
So I announced that I am running for this congressional seat. All of the things that are going on nationally, which impact us in Michigan, I am moved by. I hear from my constituents about their alarm and anguish about our economy and our democracy. And I am moved to continue to get into this fight. I'm not a wallflower. I don't shy away from tough challenges. And I think this district really needs a strong fighter.
What would you think? So now you've been 11 years in the
legislature.
Yeah. If you had to put your finger on, I guess, let's say one of the best bills that have passed.
Yeah.
And let's go ahead and ask you about one of the bills that maybe should have passed and didn't.
Oh, we could definitely talk about all of that.
Yeah, let's just give me an example so we know what's going on.
I've taken on big issues like voting rights, but also kitchen table issues like reducing costs. Let's talk about the big issues. I chair the elections committee, as I talked about. We now enjoy 9 days of in-person early voting, more access to voting because voters passed a ballot proposal to put that in our Constitution in 2022. And as chair of the Elections Committee, I wrote the bill to implement it. I worked with our clerks. So when you go into early voting for the 9 days before Election Day, it's because of our law that we drafted with clerks and with voting rights advocates to determine how early voting would work. That's a game changer in Michigan.
I don't even know if people know about this.
So I could...
So I think what you're saying is, for the 9 days leading up to Election Day, registered voters can go into their clerk's office and vote.
That's right.
Okay.
So Oakland County clerk typically handles most of the early voting sites in Oakland County. You can go to Lisa Brown, our county clerk's website, to find out where your precinct is, where you early vote. And for 9 days before Election Day, it runs like an Election Day poll. It's very inconvenient for people to squeeze voting between the hours of the middle of a work day on a Tuesday. So go on a Saturday. Go on a Sunday, or if you can take time off on a Friday, you can go. So we are running Election Day now for 9 days, and it ends on Election Day rather than thinking about it only being on Election Day. I wrote the bill to make it happen.
Wow, that's cool.
It's very, very important. But on kitchen table issues, I've been laser focused on price gouging. That has been something that I have been passionate about. There was an instance, I'll tell you what provoked this. We had a windstorm in 2017 in Michigan that knocked 1 million people out of power. So it was a weather challenge that people were suffering through. And one of the hotels in my district turned off its neon sign that said $59 a night and started gouging people upwards of $400 a night. Well, they had nowhere else to go. So we worked with our attorney general to say, all right, how can we go after these bad practices? And our law is weak. 30 states have a price gouging law, and Michigan does too, and ours is the weakest of the 30. So I have been working with our attorney general, Dana Nessel, to strengthen our price gouging law. And nobody wants to deal with this while they're already suffering through all these other things during an emergency.
Didn't this happen during COVID too?
Absolutely.
With supplies
masks and supplies
Yes.
and paper towel and toilet
I remember
paper.
reading about
Oh yeah, and
yes.
so it's interesting you mentioned that. We've been pushing to change the law, and changing the law is not always easy. But the governor took our law and put it into one of her executive orders. So she actually used the framework of what we achieved and put it into an executive order during COVID, so that people, while they're suffering through a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, don't have to, pinch pennies to buy toilet paper.
Right.
So that's an important fight that I've led on too. And then to answer your question, something that I'm really pushing and hasn't gotten done yet. I'm a big advocate of open government and transparency and people having access to their government, so you can know how these decisions are made.
Okay.
It's great that you're having a show that can tell people, but people should be able to request government documents and government records.
Well, it's funny you say that, because after my son testified at this hearing, I said, seems like this would be public. This would have been recorded and publicly available. And lo and behold, we found the video. So you're talking about transparency in government. So we know what you guys are up to.
Yep, exactly.
Yes.
But we in the legislature and the governor's office do not allow you to request access to our documents. We can give some of these things voluntarily, but you go into Bloomfield Township Hall, for example, there's a law called the Freedom of Information Act, as you know, FOIA, and you can request documents from your local government, and by law, they have to give it to you. But the state legislature and the governor's office are written out of that law. I've been pushing to get the governor's office and state legislature into a process where you can request records so you can know what's going on.
Yeah.
And it hasn't finished yet. It was not the most popular issue in town when I got there. I'm basically telling my colleagues, don't you want everyone to read your emails?
And they're like, no, we don't, Jeremy.
Right. It doesn't always make me popular, but it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So we've made slow and steady progress and now have gotten my bill out of the Senate. And it sits before the House. And as I mentioned, we're trying to get our House colleagues to move these things forward.
So do all bills start in the Senate, or can bills start in either branch?
Yeah, so House members introduce House bills.
Okay.
And they start the process in the House and kick bills over to the Senate.
Okay,
And senators
and vice
introduce
versa.
Senate bills. So I have SB 492,
Yes.
but they have HB, whatever bill
I
it is.
see.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about maybe your vision for your district if you were to become the next U.S. rep.
Yeah.
What do you think you might highlight? What do you think you might change? How's the district been running, in your opinion?
Yeah. I want to obviously succeed Haley Stevens,
who I think has been pretty. I don't know much about anything.
Yeah, no,
I haven't heard anything
she's
bad.
a hard worker,
Yeah.
and she represents every corner of this district. And I expect and will work with the same continuity to make sure people get services. When people call our office, we help them, and so that's I'm used to that type of public service, and that's exactly what we want to do if I get into this congressional seat. But in this moment, I mean, again, I hear people's anguish about our economy and rising costs. And there was just a report out the other day about really how much grocery prices have gone up, and our democracy and the flouting of the rule of law and the challenges with conspiracies around our elections. This district's looking for a fighter and somebody to really represent them and make sure that we're lessening the chaos in our government and producing results. And I'm a Democrat, but I've worked with Republicans when we saw a housing crisis. I have a law with another Republican that is building more new housing here in the state of Michigan. Mm-hmm. With police reform and public safety, I'm working with a Republican on increasing police accountability and police standards. I'm working with a Republican on that open records law. Mm-hmm. I'm proud to be a Democrat, but I like to solve problems too. Yeah. And I think that's what this district is expecting of our elected leaders.
Now, can you keep your position as senator while you're running for U.S. rep? Or
so I'm term limited.
Okay.
So I'll be term limited at the end of next year anyway.
Oh, okay.
So if elected, it will just go from one seat to another.
Okay.
Yeah.
So while you're Michigan Senator, you'll be running for U.S. Rep.
That's right.
And that election's up in November
Next year,
2026.
you got it. Exactly
and when
right.
we were offline, you were talking about 16-year-olds being able to vote, to register?
That's right. So as chair of the elections committee, we have expanded access to the ballot box. We've reduced these barriers to voting. So of course, everybody who is a citizen of the U.S. and a citizen of Michigan is by their right legally have a right to vote. What we've passed is a law that allows 16-year-olds to pre-register to vote. So upon turning 18 years old, they're automatically in the voting rolls.
Yeah.
We're trying to engage young people
Yes.
to become more involved in our political process and have a say too. And typically you go to the Secretary of State's office to get your driver's license
Right.
at 16, and then you don't ever go again for many, many years.
Yeah.
So why can't we just do it all with one fell swoop? You get your driver's license and you can pre-register to vote. Now you can't vote at 16 or 17,
Right.
but when you turn 18 years old, you'll be in the voting rolls.
And this is good for kids who are off to college. when
Yeah.
they're
Oh,
18,
yeah,
because
absolutely.
They're already registered, so they go absentee or
Yeah.
however they do it. They don't think about
That's
it.
right.
Otherwise, your freshman year in college, dealing with everything else,
Yep.
and nobody's going to think about registering to vote.
Yep, and you're already in the mindset of, I turned 18, I'm a registered voter.
Yes.
This is a right that I have as an American citizen to be able to participate and make a decision on the future of my state and community.
Right, exactly. Jeremy, when you were at Groves, did you participate in? I'm trying to identify how you got your civics mindset. It's very similar
Yeah.
to my son's, and so I'm trying to identify when that happened in your life.
I just was always interested, and I can't define a time where I wasn't interested in this. I think it's because growing up in my house, the news was always on. My parents always had the news on.
Yeah.
We were a household that was very, very engaged. That's why I wanted to be a newscaster at one point. And I studied journalism with a minor in political science at Michigan State University. But I just have always been civic-minded. It's always been something that has grabbed my attention. And this idea that neighbors can represent neighbors, that neighbors can advocate for neighbors, that's something that I've always been passionate about. And so it's just been a whirlwind of a journey. I've never plotted out. I'm not one of these crazy politicians who plots out what's the next office.
Yeah.
Opportunities have come before me, and I've seized those opportunities.
What's cool is you and I are similar in that I too have always been civically minded. I went to law school, and my first job out of law school was as a prosecuting attorney in Philadelphia. And then I became a federal prosecutor downtown, and now I run
Easy jobs.
Yeah. Now
Being sarcastic.
I own a law firm, and I'm a criminal defense attorney, but I still have this civic side of me where I do a lot of pro
Yeah.
bono work and so on and so forth. What's cool is we can be civically minded and contribute to the community in very different ways. You as a legislature, me as an attorney, and it seems like if you're interested in public service, there's a way to tie up your interest with what you can do.
And it's a noble cause. And something that frustrates me in this era that we're in right now is the demonization of federal workers and the demonization of public service. Whether you're a firefighter or a teacher or a federal prosecutor or a state legislator, these are important positions. These are noble causes.
Yes.
And I think we should treat people who want to get into this field with more dignity than I think some of the rhetoric has come about recently.
Now, there are, you know what, I won't even get into that. I am grateful for you.
That's going to be episode number 2.
Yeah. I might get in trouble, so I'll
Yes.
hold my tongue. But
Yes.
I am grateful for your time. I think I might have asked this question, but just to sum up, because we have about 1 minute left, what would be, if you were to get the position as U.S. Representative, what would be, do you have a passion project, or do you have like one single issue that, you care? I know you care about everything, but if you
Yeah.
had one thing on your plate, what you think it would be?
There are a few things on my plate. Look what we've achieved in the legislature: gun safety, tax relief for working families, expanded voting rights and opportunities. I'm working on this price gouging law.
Yeah.
All of these items you can take that experience to the federal level because there hasn't been movement on any of those things at the federal level. So I'm really running on my record of giving people opportunity, whether it's to live free from gun violence or to have relief from rising costs. That's my record, and that's exactly what I'm running on.
Well, we wish you well, and I hope you come back.
Oh, for sure.
And just grateful to you for performing the public service that you do.
Thank you very much.
Jeremy Moss, Michigan State Senate and candidate for U.S. Representative here in Bloomfield area. Thank you.